From the land where protesting is the national pastime, this is the Seoul Podcast. I'm King Sejong, reminding you that Hell Joseon is being quarantined in a country where online porn is blocked. And here is your host, Joe McPherson.
And welcome to the Seoul Podcast. This is Joe McPherson. Today we have a special guest for us. I've been wanting to have him on the show from the early days. Jacco Zwetsloot he's now host of the weekly NK News podcast. Thank you for joining us, Jacco.
Hi, Joe. It's an honor to be on the Seoul Podcast.
I rarely have said your last name. Did I ever? I've never had to pronounce your last name. Is that correct?
I think that this might be the first time. You know, I've when we moved from the Netherlands to Australia when I was 4, we fully anglicized our names. So I just go by Jacco Zwetsloot to rhyme with wetsuit, but with a Z in the front.
I was going to say it should be Svetsloot, right?
No. It's actually in Dutch. It's more like Zwetsloot.
Zwetsloot. Sloot. Yes, of course. Yeah.
So we just go by Zwetsloot in English.
Okay. Yeah. It's like we call ourselves McPherson instead of McPherson.
Some Americans even say McPherson, I've heard.
Yeah, McPherson. I don't know where it's not spelled that way.
Like the Australian model who we call Elle Macpherson in Australia, when she went to America and suddenly became a big deal there.
Yeah,
I heard Americans call her Elle Macpherson.
So she calls herself McPherson.
That's how she pronounced it in Australia. Yeah,
the correct way. The correct way. All right, good. Happy to have you on board.
I'm excited to be here. We've got a bunch of stuff to talk about there, and our mutual self-isolation. Yes.
Now, a background. Jacco's been here a long time, and it's kind of he's the foreigner of foreigners. How to describe you? It's like everyone knows you. Everyone.
Well, not everyone.
Well,
I'm very Seoul based. I don't know a lot of people in Busan, Daegu, Daejeon, Gwangju, etc. So I'm sure there's a lot of people who are watching your podcast. I've never heard of this guy, and that's because I really tend not to get out of Seoul very much.
I don't know. All I have to do is just say Jacco, and Jacco, yeah,
that guy, yeah.
that guy. I don't even need to say. It's like you're like Madonna. You just one word name. You just have to say
mononym.
Jacco. A mononym.
Yeah, Jacco, Cher, Madonna. I'm a good company.
There we go. So to give us a little background about you, and I don't even know how long you've been in Korea.
Yeah, I arrived around July 23rd, 1996.
Oh,
I was part of what was then called the Koreta program, but about a year later that morphed into EPIK, the EPIK English program in Korea. So we're a bunch of native speaker English teachers who were, God, I'm losing my vocabulary. Recruited by the Korean Ministry of Education to come out and teach English and also help with teacher training in the school system. So I came out and did that from July 96 after getting my certificate in teaching English as a second language to adults, the Cambridge certificate.
Oh, okay.
I got that one in Australia and then came out here. And I was supposed to be here for a year, and the plan was to then move on to Germany and to brush up on my German, which gets rustier by the year.
Oh, mine's dead. I'm gone with
one
my
year
German.
Became 2, became 3, and then I got married. Then my wife and I, we went to Australia for 4 years. I was away for 4 years on good behavior. And Valentine's Day 2004. So I missed the World Cup 2002, the Normal Hyun election, a bunch of things around the early 2000s, then came back early 2004. And
I think I came here. Oh, you came in February 2004 back. Yeah. That's when I first came here. Okay. All right. And you're always involved in so many things. Oh goodness. I don't remember when I first met you. Yeah.
Well, could it have been at the launch of Scott Bergeson's Outlanders book?
Oh my goodness, maybe
in the Le Saint X restaurant in Itaewon. That might have been the first time.
Or Le Saint X, where a lot of scenes from Itaewon class were filmed. It's around that area, which none. Yeah, but nothing that was there back then exists anymore. So sad.
Well, that's true of few things in Itaewon, isn't it?
Le Saint X was such a good French bistro. That was a good place. And so, yeah, Scott Burgesson. Well, that's a name. That's a name. Backing up, Scott Burgesson is he was called one of from the '90s class of expat. Produced the zines, which I think are like
About
blogs
Korea.
but photocopied.
Yeah, it was in the era before blogs, and I remember. I think it was so. I left Korea October '99, and shortly before then, maybe August, maybe September, I read an article in the Korea Times, Korea Herald, one of those two newspapers of note. About a guy who had put these zines together. It was about Scott Burgesson. I'd never heard of him at the time, never met him. And he had wanted to sell his zines at Kyobo bookstore in Gwanghwamun, but they refused to take them. So he sat down on the footpath or the sidewalk, if you will, outside Kyobo and literally just sold them cross-legged under a tree to anyone who was interested.
Yeah. That's the legend. And then later on, he published a book called Korea Bug, which was a compilation of a lot of those. And that's the first time I ever heard of him. I was in Kyobo bookstore and they were selling it, and I bought my copy. I think I have it. I got it right here.
Yes, you got it. I've got mine in the other room.
Of it right here. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, it's a great book.
It's a good book. The intro, I think, is the most valuable part of it. It's a very long intro.
The history of zines and foreign publications in Korea, that was quite it.
Yeah. He covers a lot of history that slips through the cracks, but he interviews shaman, interviews a trot singer.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very good.
Somebody from one of the last Giseng houses in Seoul before that was destroyed. So he really he did have some wonderful interviews back then.
Ooh, my copy is signed, I see. All right.
Hey.
Didn't know that. So anyway, I might have brought this with me for this. So he came up with another book years later. And I have a couple of stories in this book. And it was a compilation of stories about weird foreigners written by foreigners.
By other foreigners.
Yeah.
Right.
Called Outlanders.
Seen through other foreigners, yeah.
And it never was sold in a bookstore. It was just sold in hand because it didn't even have a copyright page on it. Didn't have anything on it. It's just
It was self-published at a local copy shop with a glossy. It was a thin little volume.
I have it back here too somewhere. I'm not going to hunt.
It's
right next to Korea Bug.
I've got a couple of copies. It was a good time.
I would love to do a show just about favorite stories from that book. That has some crazy stories in it. There's something about it. Because I mentioned him as the '90s class of expat. There's something different about those types. They tend to be a lot wilder, have wilder stories than anyone. Would you say?
Yeah, and some of them even went back, I think, to the 70s and the 80s, right? Because you had people like Mike Myers and Ken Callagher who had stories, and they'd been here even longer, much longer than I.
Yeah, the people who came here as the Peace Corps, people, and then you have the 88 Olympics group that came in, and then just the 90s, which is the Wild Wild East times. I just hear crazy stories from those days.
Actually, speaking of the 88 Olympics crew, I want to just put in a short mention here of the passing recently of one of those folks, longtime Korea expat and American lawyer Tom Panansky, who came here at the end of 1988, and who I was lucky to know, wonderful fellow. He sadly lost his battle with cancer about a week ago. He'd moved to Maine, where he was from, in the northeast of the United States, and he'd gone back there to fight the disease, but sadly it took him. So, rest in peace to Tom, and condolences to his family and friends. He was very prominent in business circles and the American Chamber of Commerce. Everybody knew either him or his late wife Roxanne Holland, who I worked with when I worked at the Dragon Hill Lodge on Yongsan. She was the head of marketing and public relations and special events there. So it was a wonderful, wonderful couple. Very sad to see them go. Yeah.
I thank you. I wasn't even aware of that. Thank you for telling me that. It's funny. I've been kind of out of touch. We're still in quarantine here, sort of. So self-quarantine, voluntary self-quarantine still, even though lots of people are going out. But yeah, we've seen a lot, and you've seen a lot, and you've had many types of jobs here too.
I, like Madonna, my other sort of fellow mononym type, I have reinvented myself many times. So I came here as an English teacher, and then I moved into, I started a small company in 2006 with a couple of colleagues from Hongik University. We did corporate training. I've done translations, voiceovers, worked as the head of the tour desk at the Dragon Hill Lodge Hotel on Yongsan Base. And then for 3 years, from 2016 to 2019, at the end of last year, I worked at a law firm doing legal marketing and PR for a Korean law firm, HMP Law. And now I work part-time at a PR firm, owned by another Korean long-term expat, Mike Breen.
Oh, you're working with Breen.
Koreans. Yes.
I want to get him on the show.
Communications. You must. He's got some amazing stories, much more interesting than mine.
Mike Breen and Andrew Salmon on the show.
Yep.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Part-time for him, part-time for KBS World News, KBS World Radio, I should say. So Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, I do a little segment on their Korea 24 show called Korea Trending. And then I also make the podcast that you mentioned, the NK News podcast, which is all about North Korea. Every week, every Tuesday, a new episode goes up, so people can go to nknews.org and find it there. The website is there's a paywall to reading articles, but the paywall doesn't apply to the podcast. So the podcast is free. Because
I do know there's a paywall every time someone's posting an article, and I have to go paywall. Okay, good. Yeah, I like NK News. I've met some of the people from there, and now you're in the podcast. What's new with North Korea then?
Well, the big sort of question about North Korea these days is, do they have any cases of COVID-19 there or not? So they've definitely had some quarantine, but they've told the World Health Organization that they don't have any actual confirmed cases of COVID-19. So that's the question is, do they have any? And Daily NK, that's one of our rival news organizations, said that there's actually been cases where people who have come down with the virus have been killed to avoid the risk of spreading it to others. So that's one of the big things. And then also another thing that was supposed to happen this week was a big meeting of the Korean Workers' Party, and that looks like it's been postponed at the moment.
Okay, I read something about it. I think they read that they were saying something about how they were approaching their tactics against COVID-19. But I just skimmed. I didn't really read in depth on the article. I think I just saw it floating around in my feed somewhere.
We've got a good episode coming up this coming Tuesday that I just recorded on last Friday with Alistair Gale of the Wall Street Journal. One of three co-authors of a big, long article that came out on the Wall Street Journal on the 3rd of April about this group called Free Chosun that used to be known as the Chollima Defense Brigade. Free Chosun, who were involved in three different events, one of them being the spiriting away of Kim Han-sol, who was the son of Kim Jong-nam, the half-brother of Kim Jong-un, who was killed at Kuala Lumpur Airport. So they were involved in the spiriting away of the son. They were also involved with the defection of a North Korean diplomat in Italy in November of 2018, and they were involved in this raid on the DPRK embassy in Madrid, something I call the Madrid caper. Now, I've got my cat Chino is scratching on the door, demanding to be let in, so I'm going to go and let him in. And bring him over.
Let him in. Bring him on. All right, we have more guests for the show. Oh my!
That's Chino. He won't be staying with me long because he's not a lap cat, but he likes to sometimes come in the room and find a place to chill out. So that's what he'll be doing.
He'll go back out. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's how cats do. Well, that's good. I miss Alistair used to be a journalist in Seoul, and now I think he's in Tokyo now, right?
He's in Tokyo. He is the Wall Street editor in Tokyo now. Yep.
Yeah. Good times. Anyway, let's talk about a bit. We're talking a little bit about COVID-19. I mentioned a little bit about it in the Driving in Korea show. What are your impressions with how South Korea's approach has been different than other countries? What has been your experience?
Yeah, it's interesting that I read a week or two ago that both South Korea and the United States had their first recorded infections on the 22nd of January.
Right.
I may be out by a day or two there. So they both had, the virus came to both countries around the same time, but the paths have been very divergent there. So Korea was very quick to start mass testing and tracing of people.
Yeah.
And that's really what's done very well for Korea. So yesterday, the numbers I saw for yesterday were something like 47 new infections, which means that for the last 3 or 4 days, we've been down to double-digit increases of infected people, which is good for Korea, right? Because, there were days when we had, I think when I was in the middle of February, I was actually down in, I was over in Europe for a conference with NK News. And in Belgium, I was watching as the Korean infection numbers were going up and up. And one day there was something like 850 new infections. I thought,
right.
Okay, it's really going bad right now. Because when I left Korea to go to Europe, the number of infections was as low as 31, right? And they knew each person by name and where they'd been. Yeah. And then we had that big cluster that happened while I was away. So by the time I came back, we'd gone from 31 to over 2,000.
Well,
and I was only gone for a week.
Because of patient 31. That's why.
Right. Yeah. So that was so Korea was very quick to start tracking it and to really to not be afraid to impinge on people's personal liberties. And I think that's something that you can get away with in Korea, but it's hard to do in Western democracies, right? So there was that moment, I think, when the governor of Gyeonggi province, Lee Jae-myung, said, all right, we're not happy with the speed at which the Shincheonji Church is giving us a list of all their members and prospective members. So we're just going to go in and raid their properties and take lists of names. And that's exactly what Lee Jae-myung did. Yeah. And that was how they were able to start tracking down people from the Shincheonji Church a lot faster than if they had waited for that group to come out with lists of names. So, yeah, and now we're at the point where if you come to Korea, they'll make you download an app on your cell phone so that they can track with GPS where everybody is. And there was a story on the front page of the Korea Times on Friday about a group of Vietnamese students who had come to Korea, and they left their phones at home and went out to a park for 5 hours. And the Korean quarantine officials, I don't know how, but they somehow got wind of this. And so those students will be deported and sent back.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the app on the phone, they're going to check in on you. So you got to push a button and say hey, I'm still here. And
that may
push
be
the
what
button.
it is.
Yeah. They're like, where were you? Why didn't you push the button? I think that's what they do.
And it's something that you couldn't do that in the States. It'd be hard to do it in other countries.
No, it's that's kind of funny. It's which liberty do you give up? The freedom of movement or the freedom of privacy?
Yep. Yeah. So that's going on, and now the last sort of really big policy change in the last few days is that South Korea did have for many years a visa-free entry program with a lot of countries in the world. So countries like Australia, the Netherlands, the USA, Great Britain, etc. You could come to Korea for 30 to 90 days, depending on which country, visa-free. And that's now all over. Now, wherever you come from, if you want to come to Korea, you have to go to a nearby consulate or embassy.
Which is very inconvenient if you don't live in a city where there's a consulate.
Very inconvenient. Yeah. When I first came to Korea in '96, I was in that situation. I had to get a visa, and I lived in Melbourne. And Melbourne, Australia, at that time had no consulate. Sydney did, so I had to send my papers up to Sydney. And because there was some kind of a hold-up or mix-up or confusion there, I had to call a friend of mine in Sydney and say, "Look, would you mind going to the Korean consulate for me and tracking this down and seeing what's happening with my visa application?"
Yeah,
because I'm not getting any word. They weren't. That was in that period before emails and before there was a consulate in Melbourne.
I mean, I had to drive 8 hours to Atlanta to get it done. Yeah.
Goodness me, yeah. Yep. So basically anyone who wants to come now to Korea will have to go back to that old system of, turning up to an embassy, presenting papers. And with those visa application papers, you have to present health documents to show that you've got a clean bill of health, that you've been to a doctor, that you haven't got COVID-19. So who knows how long this will go on for.
How would you get that in America?
That would really slow down travel to Korea for the next few months. So I hope that, it'll be able to end perhaps sometime in the summer or the autumn. But yeah,
the way I was reading the headlines, so the way I was reading the articles, it did seem like a political tit for tat. They were only doing this to countries who had imposed restrictions on Koreans in the past. I think that's what I read.
Okay, but now there's two different things going on there. One of them is there was a restriction on people from Korea.
Yeah.
And so that's a very specific thing. But now what's happening is that Korea has sort of, for 90 different countries, has put
but they're only doing it to countries that had already imposed restrictions on them.
Okay, but it's not banning people from those countries from coming. It's just saying now you need a visa. So
well, that's what I read.
It may be a retaliatory measure. It may be. It does seem a bit late in the day to start putting in that visa process. I mean, some of the people put bans on people coming from Korea, travelers from Korea back in March.
Yeah.
And this visa thing
Vietnam, China, Thailand
was just added in early, a week ago. So
yeah, that's interesting. Why they're doing that now? I mean, we're already doing 14-day quarantine for anyone coming in. And right now, as of today, over half of our cases are imported. New cases. Half of our new cases are imported.
And a lot of those are returning Koreans, right?
Yeah, so 92% was one figure I read, yeah.
Yeah. So it's no longer, a matter of foreigners coming to Korea bringing the disease. It's Koreans coming back to Korea and bringing it back. Pardon me, I'm going to have to put down a blind here because the sunlight's too strong.
Oh, okay.
Just the sun starting to get to me. Okay. There you go.
Know how famous you are. All the paparazzi trying to look in.
Always trying to look in.
I have a friend, Korean American friend, and from San Francisco. He's coming in very soon, and he's preparing himself for 14 days of quarantine. He has to come here for business, though.
Oh gosh. Okay. So it'll be a longer than usual business trip.
Yeah, he has a business here in Korea, and he has to set some stuff up. So he's going to have to do that. But he's preparing himself for the quarantine, seeing what he can do. And that's the thing is like a lot of the information is very vague. He's trying to find out if he needs to be in a hotel or if he can go to his mother's house.
Right. Yeah, I think the as with all governments, in this case, this is uncharted territory. So the Korean government's doing things by the, flying by the seat of their pants. They're making.
And I'm not saying this is unique to Korea either. It's just it just seems like a lot of stuff was thrown in so quickly. It's like do it now, plan it later. That's what it seems like.
Yeah.
Work out the details later. We just, vowing we're going to give money for this. Well, how do you figure out who gets money and who doesn't? We'll figure that out later.
Actually, that's one of the things that we're going to talk about, isn't it? That there's this disaster relief fund that the Korean government's going to be handing out of, I can't remember, a couple of 100,000 won per person.
The first one to do it was the Gyeonggi governor, first one to announce it. But we've been talking to all these officials, all these, government workers, and there's no chance of me qualifying for it, no matter what.
Yeah, in the case of Gyeonggi government, that's true. The Gyeonggi government have said, and I reported on this for KBS World, that they've explicitly said foreigners are not eligible for this. So you've got to put in a citizenship registration number, right? Into the application. So if you don't have a citizenship, you can't get that. So you've got a situation where in Gyeonggi province, there are a lot of mixed families.
Yeah, we have Ansan. But Ansan's Ansan city itself is giving aid. But I live
so there are different governments at different levels, yeah.
Yeah, Gimpo is not giving aid to foreigners where I live.
Now, in the national government, it's an interesting case. I looked at an article in the Courier Herald that where there was a statement from an official from the Ministry of Health and Welfare, and I'm going to just give you the quote here. In principle, foreigners are not eligible for the emergency funds, but in case of an international marriage, we will take into account the foreign spouse so that the Korean national will not be disadvantaged.
I've read that quote.
Specific details by case will be confirmed later. So again, they've got to work out the details. They haven't got those details yet, right? So
I'm just trying to figure out what is the advantage of having an F5 visa in this case.
Right, the F5.
What is the definition of an F5 visa? Permanent residency. It's the closest you can get to citizenship without becoming a citizen. In fact, I'm voting in a few days. And
are you?
Yeah.
Now, my understanding is that under an F5 visa, we can vote for local elections, so the mayor, the GU, etc. We can't vote for National Assembly, and we can't vote for the president of Korea.
So we can't vote for president. Can't vote for president. Let me check again.
Yeah, I don't think you'll be able to vote for National Assembly, but anything below national level, so on the local level, you could vote for.
Yeah. So anyway, I would say we're the equivalent of a U.S. green card, but green card holders in America qualify for aid.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it is it may be similar in Australia too, but don't forget that the Australian government also came under a bit of criticism recently, where Prime Minister Scott Morrison came out and made a statement and said that, if you're a foreigner living in Australia, if you're a non-national and you're on a working holiday visa, a tourism visa, or a student visa, and if you don't have the funds to support yourself financially independently, then, home is the best place for you to be. And he recommended that travelers go back to wherever they came from.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people were strongly critical of him for saying that.
But no one's critical of anyone here for saying worse stuff than that. Just saying no matter what, you are not qualified. And for me, it's not really the money. I mean, it's not much money they're giving out, but it's just...
No, in the case of Gyeonggi province, it's 100,000 won per person.
So the comment that they're saying about our value as citizens as members of the society. I don't know.
Yeah, but I think don't forget that we're barely 2 decades on from we foreign husbands being able to have permanent residency in Korea.
True.
So a lot of these things are still being worked out, and
and we only have 2% of the population is foreign, the lowest in the OECD.
And no current foreign representatives, foreign-born representatives in the National Assembly. Right?
Oh, really? She's gone?
Jasmine Lee went out a couple of years ago, yeah.
See, I'm not keeping up with these, am I? I love Jasmine.
She's also changed political parties, so she may get voted in this time if she's been pre-selected for a seat.
She should. I don't know why she was joining the Conservatives. Well, then again, I don't know. For me, politics here are so bad, are so reverse of politics in my home country, in my opinion. It does seem like it's kind of funny that the conservatives here tend to be more international while the liberals tend to be more isolationist, or seems to be that way.
There's certainly there is a national sort of an ethno-national streak through the progressive groups in South Korea.
Yeah, very ethnocentric. You heard a lot. I mean, when Jasmine Lee first got elected, just a lot of racist epithets being thrown at her from the left. And I was like, what? That doesn't make sense. Anyway.
But now she's joined a leftist sort of a pro-justice party. So let's see, how she's treated this time around.
Good luck on her. Good
luck.
Should
get on your show.
Oh, I would love to have her on the show. I would love to. I've only met her once. And it was kind of like, there was a big crowd around her, and it was just there, this little guy going, "Hey, I'm here. Nice to meet you." And that was it. Yeah. Let's see. What other topics we have? I'm all over the place.
We've got a lot to talk about, yeah.
Well, we don't have to talk about it all. It's just fine just hanging on talking. And just, I mean, how has it really affected you right now? Are you still... I assume you're going to work still.
No, I have been working almost entirely from home. So the work that I'm doing for the PR company, I'm doing work here from the house, and the KBS World, I'm literally phoning it in. Right, so I'm doing that each day.
Wow, that's interesting. I know another anchor there, Emma Kolka. She says she's been working from home a lot too, and I listen to her a lot on my news feed. Yeah.
What else? Oh yeah, but I do go out once a week to the NK News studio to record the podcast. So I've been doing them on Fridays, trying to bunch them up together. So I only have to go out once a week.
That's good. Yeah, you're stacking
and doing them all via Skype. So I haven't been doing them. Normally I would do them in person, but I've been doing them all via Skype lately.
Well, that's okay. Okay, no, that could work too. Oh, that's how we're doing it.
Right, you're in Gimpo, and I'm over here near Korea University.
Yeah, well, no one will. For one thing, no one will go out to Gimpo, but also I have a very small studio. I don't think you could fit many people in here.
Yeah, I see you've got a keyboard there next to you, and it would be great if you could, like, occasionally sort of just, between bits or when you make a funny comment, just reach over, do like 3 or 4 notes, like they do on the, on the shows.
I need to see if I've been rearranging wires so much that I don't even know if it's plugged in still. I have to go check. Yeah.
Or you could get a nice cymbal or a drum riff or something, when you say something really impressive.
In post. I used to have a thing where I had some canned K-pop clips to play. Maybe we'll do that.
My former professor at Leiden University, Remco Broker, he did a podcast called K-Pod. Clever name.
Yeah.
And in each episode, they would introduce a bit of K-pop music, but he hasn't done that since last summer. So, maybe,
okay. That's the thing. Is the trick is keeping it consistent and getting the energy to keep doing it. This is why I think Soul Podcasters got to put on hold so much. We just had so many other things going on. It's really hard to keep doing the show, and of course, my co-host went through scattered to the 4 winds, and I was here.
Left there holding the baby.
Yeah, I left it, and then my wife was always complaining that, okay, I really hate you having to do this every week, and I have to be quiet, and why do you do this? You're not making any money from this. And that's with her. That's how I justify. I have to justify every project I do by what's the financial return on it.
What's the bottom line? Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you looked at Spoon Radio? Are you familiar with that?
Not much. Heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a career platform. I think it started around 2013, and they've now got servers in the US, in Indonesia, in Japan, and so anyone can basically start up their own radio show, their own radio channel on Spoon Radio. Some people do it live, and so it's like live streaming, but it's without the camera. It's totally audio only.
Oh, okay.
And some people do pre-recorded bits, and so I've gone into some of the live rooms there, and it's so basically. So you're hearing the disc jockey talking, and there'll be some music in the background, and then you'll just see thousands of comments going up the screen, and then the disc jockey will read out some of them, and then maybe respond to them or have a discussion. So you only hear the owner of that channel, but you can see the comments by all the other people going
the
by.
Comments, yeah, doing the live thing.
So
that's what we did back in the day. And this isn't Soul Podcast. This is my first radio show I worked on, Tom Hartman program back in 2003, and that's how I got the job. That's how was I was listening to his show, and it was one of the first shows back then that had a chat room, and he would interact with the chat room on the show, and I'm hanging out there listening, and I'm interacting in the chat room. And then he emailed me one day and said, I like what you say in the chat room. Would you mind being my producer?
Wow. Wow.
That's
a great break in the radio. Yeah.
That was a good break in the radio. And back then we were just a small, scrappy radio program, daily radio program. And during my tenure, I had started this little Friday. Every Friday we had this little thing we started called Brunch with Bernie, and
Bernie Sanders.
It was an unknown, very little known congressman called Bernie Sanders would show up on the show every Friday, and he loved it because he could interact with the chat room. It was really
wow.
Fun. But then Yeah, it was kind of fun.
But it really was Bernie Sanders. I don't know.
But no one knew him back then. I mean, it was so.
Well, unless they were from Vermont. I mean, it was true.
Yeah, anyone outside Vermont. But I mean, it's back before he was going on Bill Maher and stuff. And he would even after the show, he'd actually ring my telephone and talk to me for like a while, just talking about, just shooting the bull about, hey, it was fun. Joe, it was fun being on the show, and it was stuff like that. And we talk about stuff. It was kind of fun because, I mean, he was really into his issues, very passionate about it. And that's all he
And that
about.
Hasn't been diminished with age at all, has it?
No. Very passionate. But that was kind of funny. He's one of the few guests we had on the show that actually called me at home. It happened a few times, though. That was fun.
Well, certainly the coronavirus is having its way with America right now. Looking at the numbers every day. I mean, just to keep things in perspective here, despite the fact that Korea was the second nation after China where things really took off, we still have barely over 200 deaths in total in the last 2 months in Korea, or 2.5 months in Korea.
Right, and just over 10,000 infections, yeah.
Right, and we saw numbers yesterday or the last few days in New York City, with almost 1,000 deaths per day, right? If my memory is correct on this, and that's very, very scary and very sad.
The numbers are getting so large; it's getting past that point where I can actually visualize those numbers. They're just zeros, decimal places. And that's really, and then you hear all these personal stories about a woman losing her entire family from it, things like that. And it gets, you start seeing, and you wonder what life will be like afterwards. Obviously we're not going to go back to normal. Every time there's something big, any big event, 9/11 or something like that, there's a new normal that comes around. And people were just wondering what will change in society from this. And I really can't make a prediction of this. I'm done making predictions about these
I really
things.
wonder, if you say, and some officials or some analysts have said that we won't be going back to the normal, but I really wonder what that means for things like, travel, sports events, cultural events, schools.
I mean, universal basic income now becomes less of a fringe topic, I would say.
Yeah, it does seem like Andrew Young dropped out about a month too early, didn't it? Some of the things that he was talking about.
Yeah.
It's certainly going to have a big effect on some of the industries that were already moribund and going on the way out. We're seeing, for example, in Australia, a lot of the local smaller regional newspapers have stopped going to print because there's no advertisers to pay for that. It was the advertisers more than the subscribers who are keeping that going. And once a newspaper stops printing, for every day that it's not printing, it makes it harder to restart that and to make that business case again for going back to the old ways.
Right. It makes it harder. And what was I thinking of? My mind just went blank again. Just okay. In America, you could say the religion has been that if someone is unemployed or doesn't make that much money, there must be some type of character flaw. They're
not trying hard enough.
Yeah, they're not trying hard enough, and
personal responsibility.
I'm wondering if that one will get upended a little bit, or challenge that point of view will get challenged a little bit. That wealth is not an indicator of character and working hard. Because a lot, and if you don't have a job, it doesn't mean you're lazy. It means there's not a job for you to get. I'm wondering how that would change things. I don't know.
I doubt that it will. I mean, I don't know if we saw attitudes change much after the Great Depression of the 1920s and early 30s. Did that
30s.
change much?
I think it changed a bit. I mean, you had FDR brought in brought in a lot of programs, the ABC programs, and but when the children of that age came of age, they went back to the post World War II generation. I don't know. I could go deeper about that because then you had Eisenhower, which I would say a milquetoast Republican. He wasn't that far conservative, but you did have McCarthyism, and then you had the baby boomers coming around. We started off being of the left, and then threw that off when they got introduced to disco and cocaine.
Nice little potted history there of the.
And then you have our generation, Generation X, which I had some hope for with the Seattle grunge movement, and you thought there would be a little more consciousness, but no, we've all turned into Becky's and Karen's complaining to the managers. So
I don't know who Becky's and Karen's are, but when you were young, didn't people used to say to you, if you're not a socialist by the age of 20, you haven't got a heart, but if you're not a capitalist by the age of 40, you haven't got a brain?
I've heard that. Or if you're not a liberal, I use liberal and conservative rather than socialist and capitalist.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm scared about going too far into politics on this show.
Okay, well, we could.
I will burn myself really badly, and I will say something that will get really thrown against me at some other time.
Yeah, then bring it back to Korean politics, because we've got the general election coming up, which is the National Assembly. So there are 500 or 600 members or so that will be voted in. And it'll be interesting to see whether there's a swing in favor of President Moon's party or against. Now, most people in Korea seem to be happy with the way that he's handled the crisis, if not things before then. Right.
If the election was done in late February, no.
But voting is, generally people in Korea at least are motivated to vote through anger and disappointment rather than happiness and satisfaction.
Right.
So the people who will be motivated to go out there will be the ones who don't like him so much, and it'll be interesting to see if there's more of that. How the voter turnout will affect that.
I wonder how all the churches closing will affect their voter turnout. The churches can control their parishioners on getting them out to the polls and telling them who to vote for. I wonder if that would have any effect.
Well, I don't know if they needed that much guidance anyway. I mean, generally, conservative Christians are not too fond of Moon anyway. Because he was, too conciliatory with North Korea, for example. Speaking of North Korea, this Wednesday, which is National Assembly Election Day in South Korea, in North Korea, it's the birthday of Kim Il-sung, so it's one of their biggest public holidays of the year. It's the Day of the Sun, right? So that usually means big parades, one of the few days when the public rationing system might actually give something out to the people. So we see how that day is. Both events coinciding on the same day. It's a fun juxtaposition.
And it's just a beautiful spring right now that we cannot enjoy.
Well, you can if you practice your social distancing. I mean, that's one of the things that's different in Korea to, say, Australia, where police have gone into some public parks and found people sitting by themselves and said, if you're not moving, if you're not exercising, if you're not walking to or from your house, you shouldn't be here. So no sitting in parks. Now in Korea, we haven't had that. So if you go out there in a mountain right now and you keep your distance from other people and wear a mask when you're near other
we've been
people,
doing that. We went mountain hiking last week, and tomorrow I announced the idea of taking a little car trip down to Ganghwa Island, which is right next to us, and just drive around the island a bit and see what we can do. For me right now, it's also finances are up in the air because my tour business is nothing right now.
Right.
And all my other income projects, because a lot of my clients, they're hurting, so they've canceled their contracts. And I even did some part-time teaching, but that's up in the air until schools go back.
Right.
So I'm watching the funds right now. I have enough padding, but I have enough padding because I'm not spending money. So that's why I've not gone to any restaurants. I've been Coincidentally, I've just been off drinking since I haven't had any alcohol since early March.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm actually trying to convince my wife that we should go out to a restaurant for dinner tonight. I think we should, it's lovely weather. We should go and sit in the outdoors section at Mix and Malt, like that place.
Oh, I love Mix and Malt.
Hi to Wendell if you're listening.
Hi, Wendell. Yeah, you're in Kyoto, so you're kind of near. You're near Mix and Malt. That's in your neighborhood.
It's not. It's a short bus or taxi ride from it.
Yeah, Hewa. Yeah, for me it's super far away.
Man, Seoul is super far away from you.
Oh no. Seoul is really just 20 minutes away by subway, but I'm on far southwestern part, and Hewa is the northeastern part.
Yep,
it's pretty far. Yeah, I like my neighborhood. I like Gimpo.
I do miss the occasionally being able to get together with friends for a meal or a drink. That's something we haven't done. The last time I was with a group of people that weren't my wife, I mean, she was there too, was for a wake that we had. It was the 2nd of March for another expat in Korea who died. It was Michael Hay. So when he died, my former colleague and friend, he died. Quite suddenly, not of coronavirus. I think it was something like a heart attack. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we had
it was might have been fatigue or something.
He did show signs of fatigue for a long time, but that's not normally what drops you dead. I think it may have been a cardio event.
And he had a law firm in Pyongyang, right?
For 12 years, from 2004 till 2016, he was the only man running an international law firm and business consulting firm in Pyongyang. He had a remarkable time there. Yeah. I interviewed him on the NK News podcast about that. I really wanted him to write his memoirs, and sadly that won't be happening now. Anyway, so we had an event for him on the 2nd of March at Route 66 in Itaewon, and that was the last time that I was there with people, and even then I kept my mask on.
I've been wearing my mask all the time now. Before, I think I was one of those resistant people saying, I don't need to wear a mask. They don't do anything to help you. And now I'm the other way around. I get weirded out when I see people not wearing masks.
Yeah. Yeah, and now if you were to take that attitude back to the United States, you'd find that, well, I don't know how things are now, but a couple of weeks ago, if you were wearing a mask, you were looked on as being quite suspicious, and in Australia too. I mean,
I'm trying to figure out why the Western attitude, especially the Anglo attitude, anti-mask attitude. I'm trying to think if maybe there's some stigma for wearing a mask. I think before, the only people we saw wearing masks out in public that weren't doctors were like Michael Jackson. And maybe we're associating it with freaky people.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was one of my things, because what in my gut, why was I thinking a mask? Well, for me, it was just inconvenience. But it took me a while. Now I'm gotten used to wearing one. It's not such a big deal. But it took me a while to learn how to breathe in a mask. And I hated it. Yeah.
Do you have one of those N95 ones?
No.
Yeah, those are hard. I mean, the more effective the mask is, the harder it is to breathe in there, right?
Yeah.
Because it's supposed to form an almost airtight seal around the mouth and nose.
Yeah.
And so that everything comes through that small filter.
No, I don't have that. We have some paper masks, paper filter masks, and they look like coffee filters. And I have this black mask that's supposed to be used for like exercise.
Oh yeah, I've seen those. I've seen people on motorbikes riding those as well. Yeah. I mean, even before the coronavirus, you had people on bicycles and motorbikes riding them to keep the pollution out.
Yeah, so I bought a bunch of them a while back, and the foolish thought that I would start biking.
How's that working out for you there, Joe?
Never did. And every time I try to take it out. Have you bought a bike yet? Yeah, I have a bike, and every time I take it out, it's always out of air, and I just screw it. I don't feel like it, and I don't do it. And besides, it hurts. It's just uncomfortable. I don't know, something about bikes. I rode my bike all the time when I was a kid, but now it's like now I have a prostate, and it just. It's very uncomfortable. It hurts to walk after riding a bike. Yeah. So
Well, I don't have a prostate anymore, and I tell you, it's no better. It's still uncomfortable riding a bike. So,
oh man. Oh man.
I think it's just sitting on. You got to find a comfortable seat, one of those gel.
Yeah, what happened to the old banana seats, we used to have when we were kids, and just something that's very
like on a
comfortable.
BMX?
Yeah. Those are comfortable. I can ride all the time on my BMX. I mean, I'm not gonna ride the Tour de France. I don't need some type of long distance bike. I just want something I can just enjoy.
That's another thing that won't be happening this year, the Tour de France, or if it does, it'll be without spectators, right?
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, you're right.
Right. So the Olympics have definitely been called off for a year. The Tour de France will not be spectators if it goes at all.
What do you think about real estate?
Especially
with Korea.
I know that there's a lot of people who are worried about it, and that the number of apartment sales in the last month plummeted, right? The number of actual real estate transactions.
And a lot of people have been saying for almost a decade that we're in a bubble and waiting for that one event to just burst that bubble. I'm one of those people on the sidelines hoping it will bust. Because we're sitting on the sidelines with cash ready to buy. We're just like, bring it down, bring it down, bring it down. The reason we had to move 2 years ago is they kept raising it so much. You have to keep moving because they keep raising everything. Raising
the deposits.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Are you currently on a monthly rent or the big fat Jeonse?
We're on Jeonse. Yeah. Previous place was Jeonse plus rent, and they were offering us to buy. No, the reason they lured us to this place and moved us all the way out to Gimpo was they said that, in a few years we're going to sell it to you at a great price. And then they finally announced that they were going to sell it to everyone. And we said, well, how much do you want? And they said, we want 500 million won. I'm like, $500,000 to live out in this nowhere Gimpo. I'm like, yeah, we don't really have that money. Yeah. And most of the tenants, owner? Huh? Oh, no, it was buying from it was a chaebol.
Corporation, is it?
Oh, no. It wasn't a chaebol. It wasn't. No. It was a local company, which they're called Classville, which they showed anything but. It did seem like a bunch of gangsters trying to run some scam. So most of my neighbors all moved out. The ones that stayed end up buying, and they're just pulling their hair out right now how they can afford the mortgages because they really overpaid for these apartments.
Well, at least the interest rates are down to next to nothing right now, right? So if you for those who still have an income, and if it's still at the same level as before the virus, then they're able to keep paying. It's when the interest rates go up that that'll have a big effect.
Yeah, I don't know. Just wondering how the Korean economy is going to be, but the Korean economy wasn't really disrupted, I think, in many ways, but we're an export-based economy, so that will affect things down the road. But looks like one of our big exports might be COVID-19 kits and maybe some treatments if we come up with those.
Yeah, how about that conversation that earlier this week took place between Bill Gates and President Moon? Right, they're talking about working together with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to
that's cool.
To work out vaccinations and treatments and things. They had a 35-minute phone conversation, apparently at the request of Mr. Gates. So that's a good bit of PR right before the election for President Moon.
Yeah. Hopefully Bill didn't keep his hand in his pocket during that whole time like he did with President Park. Remember that scandal?
Vaguely. I do remember there have been some issues where people were talking. Yeah, but that's only the case if they're talking in person. If they're on the phone, it's fine. You can keep.
Yeah, I know. I was trying to think of the last time I remember Bill Gates talking to a president was when he visited Park Geun-hye, and he shook hands while one hand was in his pocket, and that was a big scandal. I love how we have big scandals, just like the U.S. ambassador's mustache, just big scandals in teapots. Domes.
I have to say, apart from the group that loudly protest outside the U.S. Embassy, I don't know how big an issue the mustache of the current U.S. Embassy
No, I don't think it was that big at all. I think it was just a lot of people on the internet and Fool's Die on the Korea Times.
Very few people, that I heard spoke about it, except for some of the protesters there at the embassy. And as you say, Oh Young-jin, the editor and publisher of the Korea Times, in his interview with Ambassador Harris, specifically brought up the question of the mustache. But I don't think it's a big deal.
Embarrassing. So supposedly, people say that reminds people of the Japanese military during the occupation during colonial times. They wore mustaches.
I mean, visually it might do, but I think most people are aware.
Japanese heritage. So he's thinking of there's word that he's going to resign at the end of the year.
Yeah, did you see what the source of that story was? Because
there's word. I got that
so.
from the Hankyoreh, so it's hard to tell what the sources are.
Well, it was also in the very reliable. I'm leaning over here for my Korea Times of Friday. Here we go. U.S. envoy discussing plans to resign. Report. Now, let's see, who is the report?
No, I think the Hanky said it was 5 sources, but they didn't name any of them.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. So
I'd be surprised. I mean, after the election, we tend to change ambassadors anyway after elections.
I'm sure Korea is probably not one of his happiest places to be now. So
I don't think he really.
I'll understand it.
He tried. I saw one of our friends, Chef Ryan, was doing some type of. Had a photo with him. They were in Gangwon province, showing off Gangwon potatoes, and they were praising potatoes.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah,
he was out there. I mean, he seems like a nice guy. I'm not. The thing was, the big complaint about if he was leaving was that he wasn't staying as long as other U.S. ambassadors. But I think people forget it took a long time before he was appointed. We had a year and a half with no ambassador.
Yeah. That's right. So, it was a very unusual situation to have a U.S. embassy without somebody in the top office for so long.
Yeah, it showed how much that the administration was caring about Korea as an ally. A year and a half.
He was a good host to the Royal Asiatic Society for the garden party.
Oh, yeah, I saw pictures of that.
Yeah, so anyone out there, if you're interested in joining an interesting organization with good lectures and a wonderful summer garden party held either at the U.S. ambassador or the British ambassador's residence, join the Royal Asiatic Society. It's the best value for money club in all Korea, and everyone's welcome.
I keep meaning to join. I've gone to a couple of events, but I'm rarely in
good Zoom.
I'm really in Seoul. Lecture. Oh, really? I'm really in Seoul to go to these.
Then last week's Zoom lecture would have been right up your alley, Joe. We had over 60 participants dialing in from around the world.
You're going to say Zoom. It was Neff. You're going to say it was Robert Neff, right?
No, it wasn't. It was Jeffrey Kane. Jeffrey Kane, who's got a new book out, The Rise of Samsung.
Oh, well, yes. That's someone I want on the show. Oh, well, yes.
I'll put you in touch with him. That lecture was recorded, so it may actually be up now on the website of the Royal Asiatic Society, which is raskb.com, Royal Asiatic Society Korea Branch.com. It was recorded. It may be up on that website, so you can go back and listen to it. But I'll put you in touch with Jeffrey so you can invite him on the show.
That would be great.
I think he's in Chicago right now, but before the virus, he was based in Turkey.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, he was kind of on Samsung's shit list, wasn't he? I think.
Yeah, he did do a lot
Fool's
of
Die
digging.
Didn't like him either.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know about that.
I think anyone who's critical of Samsung is already on Fool's Die's shit list.
I can't speak with knowledge on that. I don't know. Hello to Mr. O if you're listening. I have a good relationship with him.
Okay. We've chosen to have him as our nemesis. You need a good villain, and he's our nemesis. He's our Joker.
Excellent. I yesterday we got back on the Netflix, and I started watching Tiger King. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I made my way through it. What did you think?
Well, I've only just seen the first episode, but I was reminded of that of what you by what you just said, that the Tiger King Joe Exotic needed to have a villain, and it was that
Carol Baskin,
Animal Liberation, there, right?
Yeah,
and so that was his nemesis, and yeah.
Made myself watch it because I felt like I was missing out on the zeitgeist of the COVID-19 zeitgeist. I think I should know. I should know what everyone's talking about. Honestly, I found, you're not going to believe this, I found Itaewon Class to be a lot more entertaining than Tiger King.
Okay, I've got that on the list there. I want to see that. I have to confess, I haven't seen, I haven't watched Crash Landing on You yet, and so I really want to get into that.
What is that?
That's the huge drama that went all around the world about a South Korean chaebol heiress who accidentally paraglides into North Korea and falls in love
one.
with Crash Landing on You. 사랑의 불시착.
And so I saw on YouTube like a North Korean defector talking about how unrealistic that was. But of course, it's a Korean drama. I mean, we did a show. We just recorded a show and about Itaewon Class and talking about how Itaewon Class should have been called Hongdae Class, because even though the locations were in Itaewon, the restaurant and the everything was just not Itaewon. It just didn't feel like Itaewon. It felt out of place in Itaewon.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, it was kind of like Itaewon is the foreigner neighborhood, but foreigners are just relegated to the background while these guys are opening up a pocha, which pochas you don't really see in Itaewon. You see them in Hongdae.
Not so much. Yeah.
Yeah. You go to Itaewon for burgers and burritos. You go to Hongdae for sundubu jjigae or in soju.
But Joe, don't forget that the old Seoul pub in Itaewon, after more than 2 decades, was shut down and replaced by a kamjatang restaurant.
Oh, of course, the gentrification of Itaewon. Anyway,
so it's always changing.
Yeah,
nothing stays the same.
Yeah, I know. It just felt kind of weird. It's like finally, we're going to do a show about Itaewon and talk about the very non-represented foreigner community and give them. And it was kind of like Hollywood doing a show about Koreatown and calling it Koreatown, but it was only white people on the show, and Koreans are relegated to the background. It's like, okay.
Which, probably, I mean, have you ever seen the movie Chinatown?
I recently rewatched it. You talking about Jack Nicholson?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Roman Polanski?
Yeah.
How many Chinese people are in that film?
Yeah, and that was cringy. That was very cringy.
And that was Hollywood, 40, 50 years ago. So
it was about before we were born, slightly before we were born.
Give Korea some time, and they will make a show about Itaewon in which foreigners actually appeared. Yeah. But probably a little bit early just yet. What was the other one? And of course, and then the ultimate cringe, of course.
Forget it, Jack. It's Chinatown.
Mickey Rooney in.
And Breakfast at Tiffany's. Yeah. It's
hard to watch that movie now.
You couldn't watch that. But Chinatown's still an interesting. I like watching it as
it's a neo-noir.
It's an anti-noir. It's kind of
what makes it anti-noir?
Well, it's kind of the opposite of the traditional noir. For one thing, most of noirs are filmed very kind of dark and shady. When this is very bright and it's kind of sunny colors. Usually the protagonist in a noir is kind of like a Superman. He's always the guy doing the punches like Han Solo. And this one, the protagonist gets beat up and is vulnerable. And in traditional noirs, the detective is always street smart, but also kind of right. And this one, Jack, he's wrong a lot of the times. And he's not a lone wolf like a lot of traditional noir detectives. He actually has a staff. And so it breaks a lot of the rules of noir. I find that.
I should watch that again.
Yeah, that's why I rewatched it. I was rewatching it for all those little ways. And it actually, the big bad is actually director John Hughes, who directed a lot of the old noir.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Hey, this time has got me to catch up on a lot of movies that I should be watching.
We've been watching the whole series of Seinfeld. With every meal, we sit down and throw on a Seinfeld DVD. I still have a DVD player. So I've got the old DVDs that, and we just watched actually today at lunchtime, the episode called The Understudy, in which Bette Midler did a cameo performance as herself.
And Kramer put her in the hospital.
That's right. Well, George put her in the hospital. Kramer got her out. Kramer became her minder. But the other thing that was in that story was this little subplot about Elaine and the Korean nail salon.
Yes.
In which the Koreans call her Kongjunim and speak about her in
Kongjunim, which means princess.
Princess. And so she wants to bring in a spy who can speak Korean and interpret for her what's being said. And she brings in George's dad, who it turns out used to buy religious trinkets, statues of Jesus and the Virgin Mary made in Korea, and then sell them. And he said he had a conversation with the Reverend Moon, the now late Reverend Moon Song-myung, the founder of the Unification Church. The Moon himself. The only episode in which Korean words were spoken.
Yeah, that's a good episode. That's a fun episode, and it's interesting if you know some Korean to watch that now and catch the accents and everything, and watch George's dad phonetically pronounce Korean.
Right. He did say that the women actors in that episode had written down things for him to say, but I couldn't make head or tail of it.
Yeah. Well, your Korean's way much better than mine. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to boast about it, but it was hard to understand what George's dad. George's dad, of course, was a great actor, Jerry Stiller. It was Ben's father.
Yeah,
which I didn't know until years later.
Yeah,
there was a relationship there. Yeah,
there's a great. If you watch Zoolander, they're both in that movie.
Yeah. I think Seinfeld is one of those shows that has aged relatively well. We're still able to watch the DVDs and laugh along.
Friends is not aged. A lot of shows have not aged well.
Oh gosh.
We're watching The Good Place. I'm getting my wife through The Good Place. That's a great show. That is a great show. It has Ted Danson and oh gosh, see, my mind goes blank. Kristen from Frozen. Oh my God, everyone's yelling the name at me. Anyway, it's good because it takes place in the afterlife, and with the interesting premise of the show, the little back premise is that every episode covers some topic of philosophy or some philosopher. And that's the basis of it. Now, they're not really bunk on the head. You have to figure out what the premise is. But a little background is, if you're watching, there's a little blackboard sometimes in some episodes, and they actually be written on the episode what the topic of the episode is. It's a very fascinating show, and it's just layers and layers of comedy on this one. It's so well written. Good. It's done by Michael Schur, who did Parks and Recreation and The Office and Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Did you ever watch
Kristen Bell? Boom, got it. Yeah.
Did you see Ricky Gervais's 6-episode show Afterlife?
I caught the first 2 episodes. The one where his wife died?
His wife has died.
Yeah, that was so depressing.
So you weren't able to go on after 2 episodes?
Yeah. And I recently watched a Ricky Gervais movie, The Invention of Lying. Great premise. Great premise, but just forgettable. Really forgettable. And lots of cameos too in that one, but it was it started off great, and then just I don't know what was about it. It's this premise, and I thought it'd be kind of fun, and then it just came about him inventing religion.
Well, Afterlife is good. If you haven't seen that yet, check it out, and you should go back and see the other 4 episodes. It's okay. It's not without its lighter moments.
I like Ricky Gervais, so that'll work. Well,
it's a bit like BoJack Horseman in that it's funny, but it also hits you right in the feels.
Yeah, BoJack. I've been going through BoJack, and yeah, that's a tough one. I have to really be in the mood for BoJack. Great. It is good, but I have to really be in the mood for it because it gets me so depressed. It does. I just keep rewatching Good Place. I think I've watched the whole series. I've watched the whole series basically twice, and now I'm watching the 3rd time with my wife. It's that good.
How many episodes?
It's 4 seasons,
Okay.
13 episodes a season. So you can binge it really easily, and it's very bingeable.
Good chunk of hours.
Each episode's only 22 minutes anyway, so it's very bingeable.
That's nice and short.
Yeah, and it's just pack, and everything's just so well structured because Michael Schur has this reputation and experience of making these great shows, and he's just really perfected his style so that every episode. I listen to the podcast of how they make it all, and they talk to the writers and the directors, and just how much thought goes into each episode, and they think about how they break it down, and they make sure every episode ends a certain way and begins a certain way, and these little tributes, these little Easter eggs they throw in there. There's a lot of references to Lost in there,
which I never saw. So I'm going to miss all that.
You won't get those references then.
No. So are you going to be doing the podcast weekly from now on? Is this the goal for the rest of the year?
We'll see. Who knows? When things start going up, I might not be able to do as many episodes, but I'm going to do as much as I can now.
Yeah, I think exactly. While you're housebound, it makes sense to check out a few more of them.
Doing everything that's been on the back burner the whole time. We started Dark Side of Soul podcast now. We've been doing that regularly, putting out a show every week. Just recorded a show last night. About UFOs in Korea.
Mm-hmm. I want to listen to that one.
It's a pretty good one. It's a pretty good one.
Do you think in the era of smartphones that UFO sightings have gone down?
That is something interesting. Yeah, they have kind of gone down. Yeah, Bigfoot sightings have gone down. You think we would have found someone by now?
With everyone walking around with a damn high resolution camera, you would have thought that somebody would have. Do you remember? I mean, you're about a similar age. Do you remember back in the late '90s? Early to mid '90s, there was the video of the alien autopsy that was a big deal in the United States. Do you remember that and how it turned out not to be alien at all?
Yeah. I never watched it though. I wasn't sucked into that. '90s was full of really bad, cheesy hype TV.
Well, it was the era of the X-Files too. Don't forget.
Yeah. The X-Files was good. Yeah. But
in 2000 or 2001, we had Project Disclosure.
I don't remember that.
Which is a US-based thing. So it was this guy who was a doctor. I forget his name now. Who came out and basically pulled together a lot of people from former military folks, former government folks, and academics to talk about their own personal experiences with seeing things related to UFOs, and basically called on everyone who was in the position to know things to come out and become whistleblowers. It never really became much. Which suggests that there isn't much to spill, unfortunately.
I was totally out of this pop culture in those years. Most of the 90s, I was out. In early 2000s, I was out. Yeah, life was getting in the way. I had no time to keep track of what was going on back then. But I don't remember that one. But anyway, we're doing the Dark Side podcast, and I'm starting the Soul podcast back up. By popular demand. I'm surprised that we still have friends that are still watching the show. They still want to see us go back on the air. So doing that, keeping a promise.
That's good to hear. I hope we get over. What you should do is like set a challenge to your fans that if any particular episode has over a certain number of views, that you'll do something.
Well, that brings up we do have a Patreon. At patreon.com/SeoulPodcast. And we have different tiers starting at $5 a month. And the basics is you get access to all of our past episodes, which we have a lot. We have over 100 past episodes.
Good God, wow.
Yeah, in a giant library for your listening pleasure. And really it was kind of fun as going all the way back to 2008 and seeing the topics back then.
Right.
Then we're bringing up other things, but I do have some goals. Like if we hit a certain amount, I'll be able to do more stuff. Because right now I'm doing everything by myself, and if we hit a certain amount, I can get some help and produce a lot more. And that's basically what I've found over the years is that when I have help, I'm able to do a lot more.
That's the way it works. Many hands make light work, eh?
Yeah. That's what it is. Well, thank you, Jacco. Again, one more time, tell everyone how they can find you.
You can find the NK News podcast at nknews.org, or on if you have an Android phone with one of those podcast management apps, you could just go in there and look for the NK News podcast, and you'll be able to find me there. Otherwise, you can go to the KBS World website and look for the show Korea 24, on which I appear every Tuesday and Thursday.
Wonderful.
Or go to Spoon Radio and look for me on Spoon Radio.
So you are doing the Spoon Radio thing.
I am. I've got this book that I read years ago on death and dying by an end-of-life care doctor, Dutch doctor, Bert Keizer. And he wrote this book called Dancing with Mr. D. That's the English title. And I've got it in Dutch, English, and Korean. And so every 2 days I read out a chapter in each of those languages. So it's mainly just for me, just for a hobby, but a couple of people bother to listen to it, and so that's nice.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, that's really cool. Okay, well, I'll post all of that information in the show notes. Jacco,
great, I'll send you a link.
Always great talking to you, buddy.
Great to see you, Joe. I hope to see you in person soon for a non-alcoholic beverage, a fruit juice, a smoothie.
That'd be great.
A milkshake.
Oh, calories.
All right, be good, Joe. Stay safe.
Stay safe.
The Soul Podcast is produced by Joe McPherson and is copyrighted 2020 by Zen Kimchi International under the Creative Commons license. Parts of this podcast may be used for non-commercial purposes if you remember to give us credit. You can contact us at sejong@soulpodcast.com. That's SEJONG@soulpodcast.com. For a transcript of this episode, listen to it again and write down what you hear. Please support us at patreon.com/soulpodcast.